What happens when Mike Tyson walks into his own luxury car dealership, disguised as a regular customer? Watch as the boxing legend tests his staff's true colors in a jaw-dropping undercover experiment. From icy glares to explosive confrontations, tensions skyrocket when Tyson reveals his secret identity and drops a brutal truth bomb about judgment and respect. Will his employees survive the fallout? Don't blink. This showdown will leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't believe how this ends. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The sun blazed down on the sprawling parking lot of Prestige Motors, a high-end car dealership nestled in the heart of Goldridge City. The dealership gleamed under the midday heat, its glass facade reflecting the rows of luxury vehicles parked out front like polished jewels. Each car seemed to whisper promises of wealth and status, their glossy finishes shimmering under the relentless summer sun. It was here, amidst this opulence, that Mike Tyson, former heavyweight champion of the world and now an astute businessman, pulled into the lot behind the wheel of an unassuming beat-up pickup truck. Tyson had purchased Prestige Motors just weeks earlier, but he hadn't announced his ownership to the staff yet. Today, he had a mission: to test the integrity of the dealership firsthand. Dressed in faded jeans, scuffed boots, and a plain white tank top that revealed his unmistakable physique, Tyson stepped out of the truck with deliberate nonchalance. His muscular frame and tattooed arms were unmistakable, yet his attire suggested anything but affluence. He adjusted his baseball cap, pulled low over his face, and took a deep breath before heading toward the entrance. Inside, the showroom buzzed with activity. Salespeople moved between cars, their tailored suits and polished shoes contrasting sharply with Tyson's rugged appearance. As he pushed open the glass doors, the faint scent of leather and polish greeted him, along with the hum of conversation. A group of employees near the reception desk paused mid-laugh as they noticed the imposing figure entering the space. Their eyes flickered over his worn clothes, and whispers rippled through the room. "Who is this guy?" one muttered under their breath, while another stifled a smirk. Tyson ignored them, scanning the showroom with sharp, calculating eyes. He wasn't here for attention. He was here to observe, and what he saw already told him more than he wanted to know. The air shifted subtly as the staff exchanged glances, their initial curiosity giving way to dismissive judgment. This was exactly why he had come: to expose the truth beneath the polished veneer of Prestige Motors. Let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. From across the showroom, she appeared. Victoria, the dealership's head manager, her presence commanding even before she spoke. Her sleek black blazer hugged her shoulders perfectly, paired with razor-sharp trousers and heels that clicked audibly against the polished floor. Every step she took exuded authority, her clipboard clutched tightly as if it were both a tool and a shield. Her sharp gaze swept over Tyson, lingering momentarily on his weathered boots and tank top before narrowing slightly. "Can I help you?" Victoria asked, her voice clipped and cool, each word measured like a blade, slicing through the tension-filled air. Tyson turned to face her, his expression calm, but his eyes gleaming with quiet intensity. "Just looking around," he replied, his deep voice resonating with a tone that hinted at amusement rather than offense. Victoria's polite facade cracked ever so slightly, revealing a flicker of disdain. "Are you interested in purchasing today?" she inquired, her tone laced with skepticism. Tyson tilted his head, his lips curling into a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe," he said simply, gesturing vaguely toward a gleaming sports car nearby. Her patience visibly fraying, Victoria crossed her arms. "Sir, our inventory caters to a very exclusive clientele. Perhaps I could recommend—" Before she could finish, another employee interrupted, calling her name urgently. She hesitated, glancing back at Tyson with thinly veiled irritation, before excusing herself briefly. When she returned, her demeanor had hardened further. "Let me be clear," she began, her voice sharper now. "These vehicles start at 6 figures. Maybe I can direct you somewhere more suitable." The words hung in the air like a challenge, her eyes daring him to prove her wrong. Tyson raised an eyebrow, his calm demeanor unwavering. "You're assuming I'm not qualified?" he countered, his voice low, but carrying a weight that made Victoria falter for a split second. She recovered quickly, her posture stiffening. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she replied, forcing a tight smile. But beneath her composed exterior, Tyson could see the cracks forming, her confidence wavering as she struggled to maintain control of the situation. The air in the showroom thickened as Victoria's condescension reached new heights, her words cutting deeper with each passing moment. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing used sedans or economy models," she suggested, her tone dripping with thinly veiled mockery. Tyson's jaw tightened imperceptibly, his hands balling into fists at his sides, though he kept them hidden in his pockets. He leaned forward slightly, his towering frame casting a shadow over Victoria. "You think I don't belong here?" he growled, his voice low and dangerous, like the rumble of distant thunder. Victoria flinched, but quickly masked it with a brittle laugh. "Sir, let's be realistic. Luxury motors isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time, or mine." Her words were sharp, almost cruel, as if she were deliberately trying to provoke him. Tyson's nostrils flared, and for a brief moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. His reputation as a fighter wasn't lost on anyone present, and the tension crackled like static electricity. "I'll tell you what," Tyson said, his voice rising just enough to command attention. "Let me speak to the owner." "Think we can make that happen?" Victoria blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift in his demeanor. "The owner? That's impossible. They don't just drop by for casual visits," she stammered, her composure slipping further. Tyson's lips curled into a predatory grin. "Oh, I think they'll want to meet me." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts with deliberate slowness. "Yeah, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine. Just a little misunderstanding. Could you let them know I'm here?" The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on Tyson as he ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. "They'll be here shortly," he said, his tone deceptively calm, though his piercing gaze never left Victoria's face. Victoria's clipboard trembled in her grip, her confidence crumbling as the reality of the situation began to dawn on her. Who did you just call?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Tyson didn't answer immediately, instead, letting the silence stretch, heavy with implication. "Guess we'll find out," he finally said, his tone almost playful, though the underlying steel in his voice sent shivers through the room. The tension was palpable, pressing down on everyone present as they waited for the inevitable confrontation. The sound of the main door swinging open shattered the oppressive silence, drawing every eye toward the entrance. In strode Marcus Kane, the dealership's regional director, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that screamed authority. His polished shoes clicked softly against the tile floor, but his confident stride faltered the moment his gaze landed on Tyson. "Mr. Tyson," Marcus exclaimed, his voice warm but tinged with surprise as he extended a hand. Tyson accepted it with a firm grip, his expression unreadable. "Marcus, good to see you," he said, his tone measured, but carrying an undeniable edge. The room collectively stiffened as Marcus turned to Victoria, his friendly demeanor morphing into something far colder. "Victoria, I see you've already met Mr. Tyson," he said, his voice clipped. Victoria's clipboard nearly slipped from her trembling hands as her eyes darted between Tyson and Marcus, her confusion spiraling into visible alarm. I didn't realize," she stammered, her voice trailing off as Marcus cut her off. "Didn't realize he's the new owner of this dealership?" Marcus finished for her, his tone sharp and unforgiving. He glanced at Tyson, offering an apologetic look. "I trust this wasn't your ideal welcome." Tyson raised a hand, halting Marcus mid-sentence. "It's all right, Marcus. I think Victoria and I just got off on the wrong foot," he said, his voice calm, but weighted with meaning. Every word seemed to reverberate through the room, pinning Victoria in place. Her face drained of color, and she clutched her clipboard to her chest, like a lifeline. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know." "I didn't know what?" Tyson pressed, his tone gentle but firm, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. "That I could own a place like this? That someone like me might actually belong here?" Victoria's eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed utterly lost. "I didn't mean," she began, but Tyson held up a hand, cutting her off. "It's fine, Victoria. Really." He took a step closer, his voice dropping just enough to make everyone lean in. "But let me ask you something. If I hadn't been the owner, would you have treated me any differently? Would you have given me the same respect you'd give someone who walked in here wearing a suit and tie?" Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence was deafening, and Tyson nodded as though her silence was answer enough. Turning to Marcus, Tyson's voice carried a new authority. "Let's gather everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a little chat about how things are run around here." The employees filed into the sleek, glass-walled conference room, the air thick with tension. Victoria sat near the back, her usual confidence replaced by nervous stillness, while Tyson stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding absolute attention. Marcus remained near the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he watched the staff take their seats. The murmurs of whispers died down as Tyson cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping across the group. "Thank you all for joining me on short notice," Tyson began, his tone measured but firm. "For those of you who don't know, my name is Mike Tyson, and I'm the new owner of Prestige Motors." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room, ranging from curiosity to embarrassment. Victoria sank lower in her chair, avoiding eye contact. "I came here today dressed casually for a reason," Tyson continued, his voice steady. "I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows who I am. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel walking through these doors." He let the words settle, the weight of his revelation sinking in. "What I experienced today was disappointing," he said, his voice hardening slightly. "I was judged, not for what I could bring to the table, but for how I looked. And I'm not here to single anyone out, but we need to talk about what that says about the culture of this dealership." Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushed. Tyson's eyes briefly flicked to her before addressing the group as a whole. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who walks through those doors, every customer who doesn't fit into someone's preconceived notion of what a luxury car buyer looks like." A younger sales associate, Ethan, hesitantly raised his hand. Tyson nodded toward him. "Go ahead, Ethan," he encouraged. I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes, well, sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions, Ethan admitted nervously. Tyson nodded thoughtfully. I get that. We all have biases, whether we want to admit it or not. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just try to be fair. We have to actively challenge those biases. We have to create an environment where everyone feels respected, regardless of their appearance, background, or anything else. He paused, letting the words sink in, before continuing. This dealership has built a reputation for excellence, but excellence isn't just about the cars we sell. It's about the experience we provide. And from now on, that experience is going to be built on respect, inclusivity, and fairness. A ripple of agreement spread through the room, though a few faces remained wary. Tyson's gaze settled on Victoria, who sat frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Victoria, he said gently but firmly, I want to give you the opportunity to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say? All eyes turned to her. She hesitated, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. I made a mistake, she admitted, her cheeks flushed. I misjudged you, and for that, I'm truly sorry. Tyson nodded, his expression unreadable. Thank you for saying that. I hope this experience will serve as a reminder for all of us, not just you, because change starts with accountability. He turned back to the group. Moving forward, we'll be implementing new training programs to ensure this dealership represents the values I believe in. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity, no exceptions. If anyone has an issue with that, now's the time to speak up. The room was silent, the weight of Tyson's words pressing on everyone present. He let the quiet stretch just long enough to make his point, before speaking again. Good, he said, his voice calm but resolute. I'm glad to see we're all on the same page. Change isn't always easy, but it's necessary, and this dealership is going to lead by example. He leaned forward slightly, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. Let me make something clear. I didn't come here today to humiliate anyone. I came to understand what kind of culture I've inherited and how we can make it better. His eyes moved to Victoria, who still sat quietly near the back. Victoria, he said, his tone softening just enough to show he wasn't attacking her. You're an experienced manager, and I'm sure you've worked hard to get where you are. But today was a wake-up call, for you and for all of us. Victoria looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time. I understand, she said, her voice shaky but sincere. I was wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Tyson nodded. I believe in second chances, he said simply. But accountability comes first. I'll be meeting with you one-on-one to discuss next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward. He straightened, turning his attention back to the rest of the team. We're not just selling cars here. We're building trust, creating relationships, and representing a standard of excellence. If you're on board with that, I'm here to support you every step of the way. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, louder and more genuine this time. The staff seemed to relax, the initial tension giving way to a sense of renewed purpose. Even Marcus, who had been standing quietly by the door, nodded in approval. Tyson smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hinted at both relief and determination. All right then, let's get back to work. And remember, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell. As the employees began to file out of the room, Tyson caught Victoria lingering by the door. She approached him hesitantly, her hands twisting nervously. Mr. Tyson, she began, her voice low, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to do better. I won't let you down. Tyson looked at her for a moment before responding, his voice steady. I hope you mean that, Victoria. Actions speak louder than words. But I believe people can change if they're willing to try. She nodded, her eyes earnest. I am. Tyson watched her leave before turning to Marcus. Let's set up a meeting with the staff next week. I want to make sure everyone knows what's expected moving forward. Marcus grinned, his respect for Tyson evident. You've got it, boss. As Tyson stepped back into the showroom, he glanced around at the gleaming cars, their surfaces reflecting the afternoon light. He thought about how much work lay ahead, but for the first time that day, he felt optimistic. This wasn't just about running a dealership. It was about creating something bigger, a place where people were judged by their character, not their appearance. And Tyson was ready to lead the way. Later that week, Tyson observed Victoria engaging warmly with a new customer, a young artist dressed in casual attire, much like he had been during his undercover visit. She listened intently, her demeanor now one of genuine interest and respect. The transformation was subtle, but undeniable, signaling the beginning of the cultural shift Tyson had envisioned. This small victory filled him with a quiet satisfaction, reinforcing his belief that meaningful change was indeed possible. As he watched from a distance, Tyson allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Running a dealership wasn't just about selling cars. It was about fostering trust, building relationships, and setting a standard of excellence. And in that moment, Tyson knew he was on the right path. The story concludes with Tyson stepping outside, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. He paused for a moment, taking in the gleaming rows of luxury vehicles and the bustling activity within the showroom. For the first time since acquiring Prestige Motors, he felt a deep sense of optimism. This wasn't just a business, it was a mission to redefine how people were treated, to create a space where respect and inclusivity weren't just ideals, but realities. As he climbed into his pickup truck and drove away, Tyson couldn't help but smile. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to lead by example. After all, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell, and Tyson was determined to prove it. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey. Mike Tyson's undercover visit to his own dealership teaches a powerful lesson about judgment and respect. By disguising himself as an ordinary customer, he exposed the biases that often cloud our interactions. The story reminds us not to judge others by appearances, but to treat everyone with dignity and fairness. In today's world, where diversity is celebrated, fostering inclusivity and challenging preconceived notions can transform workplaces and communities. Respect should be universal, regardless of status or looks. As Tyson demonstrated, accountability drives growth, encouraging self-reflection and meaningful change in how we connect with others. This story is entirely fictional, crafted to inspire and entertain. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey.
If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe Undercover Insights channel.